I'm Ryan Curtright with Symetrix. I'm a technical sales engineer there, handle support and pre-sales calls. I'm here today to give you a demonstration and cover some of the key new features and benefits of our new SymNet Composer 2.0 software that should be released very soon. So I'm going to just hop right in. Some of the features I'll just cover and make sure that I tell you what they do, show you how maybe what it looks like. Other features I'll open up SymNet Composer and give you a live demo. Moving on, I'm just going to do a quick rundown, I guess, of at least kind of the three of the big key ticket items, but we'll look at everything individually and all of the different features that we've added. So some key features, the first thing to notice is that we've now added Dante third-party device integration into SymNet Composer. So this means that you can now program and set up third-party Dante products inside of Composer without ever leaving Composer. Most notably right now there's the Aterotech pieces and the Stewart Audio amps as well. We have a new module. It's called the Transient Suppressor DSP module. It's found in this Dynamics modules right along with your gates and AGCs, limiters, and so on. And I mentioned before, it's great for rooms, conference rooms with noisy environments where the noises, especially in a conference room where maybe they have lunch and they're talking to the far end and everybody's eating and clanking stuff, and it can be distracting to the far end. You know, tapping pins, somebody tapping their mic a little bit, and most particularly when there's points where the mic's just open and I'm not talking into it, that's when those noises are very annoying. So the transient suppressor is a kind of a smart dynamic gate. It's going to try and tell the difference between speech and the clanks. Certainly if the clank's happening in the middle of my word, it can't really do anything, but we're talking about those clanks that happen right before I talk or on an open mic. It's going to gate those out. The normal setting is typically all you would need. Gentle might allow some of them to, the clanks to get through, but it's going to suppress them so they won't be near as loud. Aggressive's not going to let any of them get through, but it might cut off the first couple milliseconds of the things you say, trying to be a more aggressive gate on that sense. But it's certainly been very helpful in a couple conference rooms already. Another feature that now we're getting out of less DSP type features and more workflow features to just speed up your commissioning of the system. We have now added a pull from unit button. If you have a design open and maybe you got kicked offline and you don't want to push to get back online, you can click that pull online button above and it will pull the file from the currently archived site. Now, if I hit pull and I don't have a site open or it doesn't recognize any of my units as being the archive units, then it's going to just launch you directly to the connection or the system manager to do that. So for instance, if I hit pull right now, actually I've already pushed to a unit, so it's like, oh, hey, you want to pull this file. But let's go and open a blank file so you could see. So right now I had pushed that file once. I clicked pull just now. It said, hey, I don't see anybody to pull from. Maybe you need to select from the network. And here I could go, oh, and I look and find the unit has valid archive site files. Those are units I can pull from. And then I could hit this go pull online from unit. As I mentioned, here's a file I've already pushed. So when I click pull, it's going to go, oh, hey, do you want to pull? And it's going to automatically pull from this unit. So I'm offline. If I can't push, which does kill the audio going to the boxes, I can always pull and get the file off the hardware without interrupting audio. So that's up here in the corner, this pull from unit button. That should certainly streamline some of those processes as well. Another thing that might be handy is to be able to copy and paste control assignments. So let's say I have a EQ, maybe it's a dual mono module EQ, so I can't just duplicate it. I want all the same control numbers to be assigned to one as another, so a third-party control system or SymView will control both in parallel. So in that, let's see if I took a EQ, or maybe I'll do a loudspeaker manager for you, and we'll do a dual mono version.
And so maybe what I have is I have some settings in this, and of course then let's say I assign control numbers to it. I'm going to do it like this, assign all control numbers. So now there's 50 control numbers on this, and if I wanted this second version to run in parallel, I would need to assign all those same control numbers. So there's a couple of ways to do it, but what we've added is a new, easier way. So if I edit remote control assignments on the one that's assigned, I can hit this copy assignments button, and it tells me it's copied 50 assignments for this type of a module. Go to the second unit, go to edit remote control assignments, and now I can just paste them all onto it, hit done, and now you'll see the bottom version has all the same control assignments in the same places as the previous one. So controlling them from a third-party control system, they'll move in parallel at that point, or from one of our controls for that matter. Another feature that has been enhanced with SymNet Composer, we added the ability to trace a signal path forward to see where a particular path goes or a particular source goes through the signal path. However, this was limited to a single DSP box, which show you the signal path in that box. But once you went across Dante, it was off in the netherworld, and you know, if you went into the next box, you would get no indication that that signal has passed through the Dante network. Now you can see here that this is a signal path in a single box, and this diagram's kind of easy to show you, I think, in that I right-clicked the mic input and said trace signal path forward, and I see it goes through a selector, out a router, through these SPL computers, all the way through a bunch of processing to the outputs, as well as to a 4-channel send Dante. What's cool now is if I go into the other device where that Dante is sent, I can now see that those channels would be highlighted as well. So I could step through trace signal path forward in one box and go through every box in the SymNet system, and it would show me via highlighted wiring where that source went system-wide, not just in a single DSP box. Another cool feature, certainly it's very common in most DSP designs, or at least a lot of them, to have a fire alarm safety mute. The fire alarm gets muted or goes off, it triggers a relay that hits our control inputs, and we trigger a mute. Up until Composer 2.0, you'd need to create a preset that muted all your outputs and a preset that unmuted all your outputs and then trigger those. What we've done now is the moment you start a new file in 2.0, we automatically create preset 999, which will mute all hardware, including Dante transmit modules, and preset 1000 that will unmute all outputs as well as the Dante outputs. So no longer do you need to create those, you can just access them. If there's some question to whether or not that preset's been triggered, you can go to the diagnostics module and you'll have an LED that will show you that it's been triggered. Of course, you have 1,000 presets to use up until now, so now you have 998 presets to use. We stole 2 of them from your currently available presets to make these mute all and unmute all presets, and hopefully you appreciate that. Along those lines, the system has a emergency mute, which is F2, and that also gets engaged when you push the file to the hardware. Of course, all outputs get muted, so you don't hear weird anomalies as boxes get updated. However, what happens, and we see it fairly regularly, is before clicking OK and the system ramping up after pushing the file, there are cases where someone maybe clicks and drills into a DSP without clicking that OK, and the system gets stuck in a muted state. Oftentimes you could step out and you'd see that this F2 mute is active, but some cases in certain screen resolutions this button ends up below the normal view of the software. And so what we added was a yellow indicator. The green online checks will turn yellow for any boxes that are stuck in a mute state. So you'd see that they're muted and you could just simply hit F2 and it will ramp up and unmute everybody. But a nice kind of addition there to keep people from troubleshooting no audio output when the system's just stuck in kind of a download state. VIAs were added to Composer. Originally with Composer, I want to say 1 or 1.1. They're just like our competitors' pass-throughs. They're little internal buses on a DSP by DSP basis. So it allows you to simplify your wiring by maybe not making wires do crazy things. You could go into a VIA and then return it wherever you want in the design. Previously, you had to drag a via out and wire it up, and then you drag that same via out somewhere else and reverse its orientation. We give you now the ability to just drag in a pair, so you get the input and the output side of the via in a single drop. You change the name on one, it's going to change the name on both of them. So it's really quite just kind of a time-saving technique with the vias. AEC Input Modules have been reorganized, so now the block of AEC inputs are all together and the direct inputs are all together. AEC1 and Direct1, of course, is the same audio, except AEC1 has gone through the AEC algorithm and removed whatever was handed to the reference. Now, one thing that's important to note is if you like the old method where it went AEC1, Direct1, AEC2, Direct2, and stutter step them, none of your old site files will be affected. If you open them up, they'll contain their original scheme. So if you like that scheme, I would say delete your design from one of those files and save it as a template, and you can use that for all your conferencing designs and duplicate that, radius AEC or edge unit, and it will always have the original stutter stepped configuration. Although I think for most designs this will really help out. And it, of course, allows you to do, hold down 8, click this button, I can wire all 8 of the AEC inputs at once. So it allows that auto wire feature to be used in an easier fashion. We've also added the ability to change the properties of multiple wires at once. So here in this design, I right-clicked a wire and said trace signal path forward, and I can see everywhere that signal goes. But then if I wanted to make that constantly changed a different color, so red is the selected color, I could go right-click one of these select wires and choose multiple wire property. When I do that, it's going to pop open a window that then allows me, if I hit change, to access a color palette. So I could change my current black color to this purple color, click OK here, and then click OK here twice, and you'd see that all those wires now are purple, and that helps maybe to differentiate different signal paths in a single DSP. Another feature for especially guys that are new to SymNet Composer, they might like this. Under Tools and your application preferences, we added this field, which, by the way, is checked by default. What this means is once you push the file and go online, the system will automatically take you out of edit mode, so you can't do any changes that would kick you offline. Certainly some guys that are new to the system sometimes push the file, they move something on accident or something that they just didn't realize would kick them offline, like a wire or a module placement, and then they can't figure out why they're not hearing their EQ changes and stuff like that. So this will automatically kick you out of edit mode, make sure that you can adjust faders and gains and mutes and trigger presets and things like that, but not do anything that would kick you offline. Now for me, this is super annoying because every time I go online, I need to go Tools and recheck edit mode or hit the F9 button to toggle myself to edit mode. And that just gets annoying. I'm certainly used to the way SymNet's been working for years, so I unchecked that by default. Once again, that is under Tools. I'll show you Tools, Application Preferences, and it's this checkbox down here on the Going Online section. A couple other noticeable changes is that all the meters, LED, and gauge modules can be labeled, and of course these will be auto-labeled with the relabel downstream devices. So now when you have some meters coming off some outputs or something, you'll be able to see what their names are. So that should simplify some troubleshooting and putting meters on control screens and things like that. As I mentioned in the beginning, TCP/IP support is supported now, so certainly controllers like Extron have typically only been able to talk to us over RS-232 because we only supported UDP IP and RS-232. Now we support TCP/IP, so you can see here that a telnet session, which any telnet software would work then, is connected to a unit and sending CS, so control, they're sending a control to control number 250 and telling it to go to the max, and then they're getting the feedback from the DSP that 250 has been set to the max. So yeah. On the inverse side of things, we also have 232 string output modules. We have network string output modules. You'll see that the network string output module now supports TCP/IP. Just click the TCP button, and you can send custom ASCII, binary, or hex strings. Of course, hex is just a type of binary out the IP port in both protocols, UDP and TCP. So pretty cool new feature there. You'd use this for maybe controlling a projector, turning it to a different input, or any of the features in it. Basically any network device that has a protocol that's defined for third-party control, most likely we can now send them a command to control them from within SymNet. So that means you could have a button on an ARC that changes the input of a projector, or maybe you hit a single button that drops the screen, turns the projector on, sets it to a specific input, and you do that all with some logic modules, including the network string output set to TCP. A couple other features I'll just mention and not necessarily show you, but some longtime users will probably be excited for at least a couple of these. One, presets can be created and edited without going offline. So if you're filling a preset up as you build maybe an EQ preset for the evening, you don't have to get kicked offline every time you put a EQ crosspoint into the preset and then have to push the file to go online to add the next one. Now you don't get kicked offline. At the end of creating your presets, you certainly would want to push that to archive those presets for good in your unit, but we've definitely streamlined that process so that you don't have to constantly push the file back to hardware. Another thing to mention is Composer no longer goes offline when toggling between an online site file and any other site file you might have open in Composer. So maybe you're using one design to see EQ settings or feedback eliminator settings or something. You can now toggle between those two designs, and your current design that's online stays online. And the last feature I'll mention is that you can always generate reports in SymNet. We've changed the format slightly, so if I go to Tools and I go to Generate Report, now I can, and you'll notice I can put all kinds of stuff in here, but the actual format, I'm just going to go to the screen, is set up now so that it's much easier to print out and compare two designs and see all of the control that's been assigned, presets have been created, and so on and so forth on a side-by-side comparison. So if you're looking for what changed from one working file to a non-working file, that generate report option will certainly help. So basically that's the new features in 2.0.